I can't be the only one feeling like we're going through a multitude of crises at the moment. Now, whether that feeling is amplified through my curated yet inescapable, algorithmically fueled and cookified online experience, or whether it's an accurate impression of the state of things, I'm not sure. I'm not sure much these days. One thing I'm fairly confident about, though, is that with the rapid advancements in machine learning technology, what some like to call AI, things have gotten weird. It has definitely sparked interesting debates about art and ownership, and also what it means to make real music, and that's actually the thing I want to talk about today. Not AI, because to be frank, even though I said it sparked some interesting debates, I'm also a little tired of that topic. So yeah, not AI, real music. Or real versus fake music. But not pseudo-fake music. No, real fake music. And I want to start things off by making a simple observation. And let's put what I'm about to say in quotation marks to give it some gravitas. One person's conservatism was once another's progressive vision. I feel like this idea is lost on many who talk traditional values and tradition overall. And no, this video won't be about politics or conservatism as a political ideology. I'm making a point about unchecked assumptions and wasting your time on ideas that don't serve your musical goals, but we'll get there if you just bear with me. For now, let's go back to tradition and let my point slowly unfold with the proper context behind it. Okay, so my view is that whatever we think of as tradition is pretty much always derived from an arbitrary and sometimes even quite narrow window of time. Maybe even a backwards projection of sorts. Because we create a cutoff point, attach a set of values to our window of choice, and then slowly build a story around, well, the glory days and why they are worth preserving. But tradition isn't unlike culture in that it's always changing, which is ironic. Of course it is, because traditional values were once novel. But anyway, why am I talking tradition? Well, the power of tradition is strong when it comes to accepting what's true and real versus what's fake and false when it comes to music. People who care a lot about tradition do so because there are attitudes and values represented in the idea of the tradition, their idea of tradition. And so participating in that and actively preserving it becomes an active embodiment of those values and attitudes for these people. It's kind of like this. The tradition of always doing X is important because it represents Y. And I care a lot about Y, so I'm invested in the narrative built around doing X in this way. Doing X becomes a way to preserve the set of values represented by the letter Y in this example. In music, X could mean something simple like playing the whole song through and recording to capture a real take rather than chop it up in small bits, because it represents the idea that what you hear on a song is the real thing and that the artist is indeed able to play it. I would say this is a musical tradition that certainly was, and probably still is, quite strong in certain genres, or at least subgenres. Now, some would maybe say that it sounds better and more human to record this way, and therefore it's preferable, but that's a different type of statement altogether. That's a statement about the sound and or quality of the song. The other statement, the first one, is a statement about authenticity and skill, of wanting the audience to be able to trust that they are listening to a real performance. For example, if I say that my goal is to create the best listening experience possible, just saying that doesn't really explain which kind of statement I've made. Because if my listening experience is ruined by knowing that I'm listening to a bunch of cut together guitar parts, then it's no longer a good listening experience for me, because I need the values behind the recording to align with mine in order for me to actually enjoy listening to it. But on the other hand, if listening experience simply means the cleanest, most perfectly pitched, huge sounding wall of guitars, then one guitar take is hardly going to be the way to achieve that. So yeah, understanding the difference between these two statements is basically the point of the video. And before I dig myself into a deep hole here, I just want to say that no one, and I mean absolutely no one, needs to be or should be offended if we don't all agree about this topic. If you think I'm an idiot, if you think my opinions are horrible, that's fine. I'm just as curious to hear your thoughts when you disagree with me as when you don't agree with me. As when you don't disagree with me, as when you agree with me. All right. Agree or disagree? I want to hear your thoughts. It's not scary. We should not be afraid of disagreeing, all right? It's just opinions. It's just attitudes. It's just values. It's conversation. It's good. Okay? Thanks. Now, with that out of the way, I think we're ready for a mental exercise and a sort of checklist for what I have in mind for today. Just to give you an idea of where my head is at with all of this and to give some concrete examples to make things a bit more tangible. So let me throw out a few questions and let's see how many of these you agree with. So, is it okay to use pitch correction? Edit the timing of a performance? Use plugins for instruments you can't play yourself? Program drum parts that require 3 hands? Layer enough guitars on a recording to make it impossible to recreate live? Record chords note by note in an impossible voicing to get them more clean sounding? Comp vocals? How many of these were you okay with and why? Let me know below. I find this so interesting because in my experience, how people tend to answer these questions comes down to what traditions they want to conserve. What are the underlying values or unchecked assumptions about what a recording should represent and why? What should a song or an album really reflect and what is its purpose? What kind of an entity is it really? Personally, I think it's important to explore these questions because I think it can help us all pinpoint our goals and get rid of habits that don't serve them. For example, when I first started to reflect on this with an open and self-critical mind, it quickly became obvious how many of my own ideas were basically derived from the simple concept of band going into studio, band making songs that can be played as band. Because this was what my DVD collection consisted of and what YouTube was for, behind the scenes studio stuff. This was the stuff I loved to see. Bands writing songs, recording the songs, and then going on tour to play the songs live. But for some reason, backing tracks for orchestral and ambient stuff always got a free pass, as long as the guitar, bass, drums, and lead vocals could be performed live. Because it was metal, those were somehow the agreed upon rules. Anyway, I digress a bit because I believe the question was, what kind of an entity should a song or an album be? If my goal is to create a specific listening experience, for example, defined by me in this case, which seems like a reasonable assumption, then why can't I write drum parts for 3 hands, tune my vocals however I want, or record as many guitars as my DAW can handle? Anything to serve the vision, right? Now, clearly this could obviously be a problem if the goal is to play the song live eventually. But what if that was never the plan? What if that is never the plan? What then? Why would I want to limit my sonic vision for some arbitrarily imposed restrictions about a hypothetical live performance? I don't see the logic there, and besides, again, somehow those rules only apply to some of the instruments. What about including guitar parts that I can't really play? Even though guitar is supposed to be my instrument. I mean, I sort of advertise myself as a guitar player to some extent here after all. Is that okay? For me, absolutely. The guitars in my music, they're there to serve the songs, not to boost my ego. And I have no problem admitting that it would take a lot of time for me to nail all the parts perfectly, and I have definitely cut some corners on the album I'm about to release. Again, if I have a specific vision and my goal is to create a listening experience that matches that, then the best way for me to achieve that is to edit some of the guitar parts some of the time and just move forward with the recording. I think a few things are important to clarify here though. Number one, and this is something I talk about all the time here on my channel, and that's my passion is in creating songs, not in performing them. So if I can save time by recording something broken up in a few takes rather than spending time nailing that one perfect take, I will. But the key thing is, I don't hide that. I don't pretend to be a perfect player, unlike some. I make songs because that's what I'm passionate about. It's just like how a composer can't really play all the instruments in an orchestra, but can still compose for one. Everyone in that scenario recognizes that those are different skill sets. As long as you don't mislead anyone or misrepresent yourself or your skill levels to create a false perception of yourself as a player or as a musician. At least for me, that's crucial. I don't ever want to perform my music live, so I don't need to be able to recreate it in a live setting. It's simply not created for that purpose. Now, does that make the music fake? Well, if you think that what you hear on a recording should be an accurate representation of what you hear in the room, then probably yes. But then I have some news for you about your favorite records. Making a record is usually about making something sound as good as possible for the ages, while still being able to arrange it for a live setting and not lose the thing that makes the song be what it is. But none of that applies to what I do, so that would be a weird restriction to put on myself. If it does apply to you and what you do though, you obviously need to be able to deliver live or you'll piss a lot of people off. Again, it comes down to not misrepresenting yourself. I guess what I'm saying is that it's only fake music if you pretend that it's all real. I can't play tagel harpa, but that wouldn't keep me from putting one in a song. My drums are programmed. I don't play drums. You get the point. The skills I'm most interested in developing for the art I'm passionate about making is the writing, arranging, and overall production of a sonic experience. I want to be able to produce an experience that matches what I have in my head. I know I say it all the time, so I just repeated myself again. And because I understand the concept of alternative cost and critical thinking, and because I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore, I'm not going to spend my limited time learning to play and record the drums, not to mention finding and affording a space for it, nor am I going to spend hours practicing guitar in order to perfectly execute any kind of guitar part I could think of one day wanting to use in a song. If I did, I'd never have time to put out any music. So yeah, I'm all for real fake music. Just be honest about what your goals are with your music and smart about how to efficiently achieve them. Don't get lost in arbitrary tradition or the minutiae adjacent to whatever subculture that shaped your identity and gave birth to your unchecked musical values. If any of that applies to you, of course, but most importantly, never trick anybody or misrepresent what you do. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely day wherever you are in the world and take care. Bye-bye.